Russell Bennett regarded his 6-year-old son, Noah, whose eyes were round with stark fear. The child's small digits pressed deeply into Russell's arm. "Papa, we must conceal ourselves right away," Noah breathed, his voice quavering. Russell got down on one knee, looking straight into his son's eyes. "What's the matter, little man?" "They're arriving this evening. I saw it on Mommy's phone." A knot of dread formed in Russell's gut. Vanessa had departed for her getaway with her friends merely 3 hours prior, her designer suitcase filled for what she described as a weekend spa retreat with old university pals. Their 15th wedding anniversary was just a fortnight away. "Let me see what you found, Noah," Russell instructed, maintaining a composed tone. Noah guided him to the main bedroom where Russell's spouse had inadvertently forgotten her previous phone, one she asserted was non-functional. Noah was familiar with the access code, Vanessa's birth year, a detail so predictable Russell nearly chuckled. "I just wanted to play some games," Noah clarified. But then all these messages started appearing. Russell skimmed through numerous text exchanges between Vanessa and an individual saved as work associate. The latest communication stated, "Place. We'll be clear tonight. Russell suspects nothing. The boy should be asleep by 9. Russell's jaw tightened. A decade and a half of matrimony, 2 offspring, and an existence he believed was built on a firm foundation. The construction enterprise he'd forged from scratch had brought them affluence, affording the 5-bedroom residence in a prestigious area, the holidays, the elite schools, all while Vanessa dabbled in an interior design career that somehow never gained traction despite his networking and monetary backing. "Noah, fetch your sister. Inform her we're engaging in a unique game tonight." 8-year-old Lily materialized shortly after, rubbing drowsiness from her eyes. "Daddy, what's going on?" "We're pretending to be spies this evening," Russell announced, managing a smile. "I need you both to pack a little bag with your most cherished items, just as we've rehearsed for emergency situations. You recall?" While the children collected their treasures, Russell monitored the security cameras via his phone application. The grounds seemed tranquil. The meticulously kept lawn, the triple garage, the infinity pool shimmering beneath the garden lights. Everything appeared normal, for now. Russell proceeded to his study, extracted the concealed safe from behind a painting, a wedding present from his wife's father, and took out his Glock 19. He hadn't handled it for several years, yet innate familiarity guided him as he inspected the magazine and slid a bullet into the chamber. His thoughts drifted to his upbringing, the mobile home community in rural Pennsylvania, the frequent relocations whenever debt collectors appeared, his mother's string of abusive partners. He had battled his way up from that existence, creating something from very little. The construction firm had been his deliverance, his testament that resolve could conquer any adversity. When he encountered Vanessa Pearson at a philanthropic event, her lineage boasted established wealth and influence. He had been captivated. She embodied all he had striven to attain: refinement, security, respectability. Her father, State Senator Dale Pearson, had overtly indicated Russell wasn't suitable, but Vanessa had apparently gone against her family's wishes to marry him, or so he had believed. He telephoned his most dependable employee and confidant, Miguel Sanchez, who picked up on the initial ring. "Chief, is everything all right? I require a favor. Don't ask. Can you rendezvous with me at the lodge in an hour? And bring that security expert you spoke of, the one who keeps things discreet." "Consider it done. Are Vanessa and the children okay?" Russell's tone grew steely. "Just be there." After assembling the children and their bags, Russell escorted them to the garage. As they settled into his Range Rover, he detected the unmistakable crunch of tires on gravel. Headlamps illuminated the driveway as a vehicle neared. "Get down," he commanded. The children crouched beneath the window line. Via the security footage on his mobile, Russell observed a black Audi, not Vanessa's, drive up. A man alighted, tall, with an athletic physique, clad in a costly suit. Russell knew him instantly. District Attorney Anthony Walsh, the ascendant political figure who had been a guest at their social gatherings, the individual Vanessa had presented as a long-standing family acquaintance. Russell's finger paused over the garage door control. He could face them at that moment, Walsh and any accomplices, armed with his weapon and his fury. But Noah's terrified expression in the rearview mirror served as a reminder of the true stakes. Instead, he maneuvered the Range Rover out through the alternate garage exit, headlights extinguished, and drove away from the property. As they merged onto the main thoroughfare, a second vehicle sped past them, Vanessa's white Mercedes. "Is that Mommy?" Lily inquired, looking out the window. "Yes, darling," Russell answered, his voice unnervingly level. But we're still engaged in our spy mission, so we mustn't let her spot us. His offspring did not need to observe the ensuing events, but he would not tolerate this duplicity. Russell Bennett had struggled too intensely for all he possessed, and he never ever overlooked those who wronged him. The Bennett family cabin sat on 20 acres of forested land by Lake Chatsworth, 2 hours from the city. Russell had purchased it 5 years ago as an investment, though Vanessa had shown little interest in roughing it, even in a 500-square-foot luxury cabin. Miguel was waiting when they arrived, along with a short, unremarkable man with wire-rimmed glasses who introduced himself simply as Pike. "The kids can sleep in the loft," Russell said after brief introductions. "I've got Netflix on the TV up there." Okay, here's the text formatted for readability, with dialogue on separate lines and clear paragraph breaks. Once Noah and Lily were settled with blankets and cartoons, Russell led the men to the main living area. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the moonlit lake, but Russell drew the blinds before speaking. "I need information," he said, pouring 3 glasses of bourbon. "Everything on District Attorney Anthony Walsh and his connection to my wife." Pike removed a laptop from his bag. "Timeline for this?" "Yesterday," Russell replied. While Pike began his work, Russell explained the situation to Miguel, who had been with him since the beginning, from their first remodeling job to the multi-million-dollar development company they now ran. "Walsh has political ambitions beyond DA," Miguel noted. "Word is he's being groomed for a gubernatorial run, with backing from the Pearsons." Russell finished the thought. "My in-laws never thought I was good enough for their daughter. 15 years, and Dale still introduces me as Vanessa's husband at their country club gatherings." "What's your play here, boss?" Miguel asked. Russell stared into his bourbon. "I need to understand what I'm dealing with first, but I won't lose my children, and I won't be made a fool of." Pike worked through the night while Russell and Miguel strategized. By morning, they had a clearer picture, and it was uglier than Russell had imagined. Walsh and Vanessa's relationship wasn't new. Digital forensics showed communications stretching back 18 months, coinciding with Walsh's appointment as district attorney. But more concerning were the other connections Pike uncovered. Financial transfers from Senator Pearson to offshore accounts linked to shell companies that had recently bid against Bennett Construction for major government contracts. "They're not just sleeping together," Russell realized. "They're trying to dismantle everything I've built." The pieces fell into place. The unexplained contract losses, the sudden regulatory hurdles, the routine audit from the state attorney's office. Vanessa hadn't just betrayed their marriage, she'd been actively undermining his livelihood. "Your wife accessed your home office safe twice last month," Pike noted, showing security footage Russell hadn't known existed. "And there's this." He played a recording of Vanessa's voice. "Daddy's convinced the rezoning will go through next month. Once Bennett Construction secures the River District contract, you'll have everything you need." Russell's hands tightened around his glass until Miguel feared it might shatter. "Boss, if they're using your company to build evidence for some kind of case," Miguel began. "This isn't about business," Russell interrupted. "This is personal. Walsh wants my position, my reputation, and my wife. And my father-in-law is finally executing his plan to remove the embarrassment from his daughter's life." Russell spent the morning making calls, moving assets, and initiating contingency plans he'd created years ago, but hoped never to use. By afternoon, he had a clearer understanding of the trap being set for him. That evening, as the children played by the lake under Miguel's watchful eye, Russell received the call he'd been expecting. Vanessa's name flashed on his phone. "Where are you?" she demanded, her voice a mixture of anger and something else, fear. "And where are my children?" "My children," Russell noted, "not our children. We decided to take a camping trip," he replied evenly. "Father-child bonding." "You need to come home now," Vanessa insisted. "There's a situation with the River District project. Anthony says—" "Anthony?" Russell interrupted. "You mean District Attorney Walsh?" A moment of silence confirmed everything. "Russell, please." Her voice softened into the tone she used when trying to manipulate him. "Whatever you think you know." "I know enough," he said. "Tell Walsh and your father that their plan has a problem. Me." He ended the call and turned to Pike, who had been recording and analyzing the conversation. "She's at your house with Walsh and 2 others, Pike confirmed, showing satellite imagery on his laptop. "And they're panicking." Russell nodded. "Good. Phase 1 complete. What's Phase 2? Miguel asked. Russell smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "They want to use my family against me. Let's see how they like it when I use their playbook." 3 days passed at the cabin. Russell maintained a carefully orchestrated communications blackout, allowing Vanessa to stew in uncertainty while he built his counteroffensive. The children, told they were on a surprise vacation, enjoyed the lake and forest activities that Russell arranged, oblivious to the storm gathering around their family. On the fourth morning, Russell received confirmation that his first moves had landed. His attorney, Charlotte Winters, a shark in designer clothing who had represented him since his first major construction project, texted a single message. Papers filed. Judge Holden assigned. Emergency hearing granted for Friday. Russell had filed for divorce and emergency custody of the children, citing abandonment and moral character concerns. Judge Holden was known for his traditional family values and had a documented distrust of political influence in his courtroom, a perfect combination, given Walsh's involvement and Senator Pearson's potential interference. Your wife has made 17 attempts to access your company's servers, Pike reported, showing a digital activity log. And there's been unusual activity at your residential property. Security footage showed men in unmarked vans removing items from Russell's home office. Walsh appeared in several frames, directing the operation, while Vanessa paced in the background. They're getting desperate, Russell observed, which means they're getting careless. A call from an unknown number interrupted them. Russell answered on speaker. Bennett. His voice was ice. Mr. Bennett, this is Special Agent Teresa Delgado with the FBI's Public Corruption Division. The woman's voice was professional, but carried an edge of urgency. We need to speak with you regarding an ongoing investigation. Russell exchanged glances with Pike, who was already tracing the call and nodded confirmation. Interesting timing, Agent Delgado. I assume District Attorney Walsh is involved in this investigation? A moment of silence. Sir, I'm not at liberty to discuss... Let me save us both some time, Russell interrupted. Walsh is using federal resources to pursue a personal vendetta. You might want to verify your information before you become part of a malicious prosecution. Mr. Bennett, we have documentation suggesting financial irregularities in several government contracts awarded to Bennett Construction. Fabricated documentation, Russell corrected. Check the metadata on those files, and then ask yourself why a state DA is pushing a federal investigation without going through proper channels. Another pause. How did you know? I'll be happy to meet with you, Agent Delgado, Russell said, but only with my attorney present, and after you've had a chance to verify that your evidence hasn't been tampered with. I suggest you look into who accessed those files and when? After ending the call, Russell turned to Miguel. They're accelerating their timeline. We need to do the same. The next day, Russell left the children with Miguel at the cabin and drove to meet Charlotte at her office. The elegant attorney greeted him with a grim smile. They're moving faster than anticipated, she said, guiding him to a conference room where documents were spread across the table. Walsh has convinced a grand jury to consider indictments, and your father-in-law has called in favors to expedite matters. What about our countermeasures? Charlotte's smile turned predatory. Already in motion. Your ex-wife-to-be doesn't realize you've been recording everything in your home for the past 5 years, including her conversations with Walsh about using your marriage to gain access to your business. Russell had installed a comprehensive security system after a break-in attempt 3 years earlier. Every room, even his home office, had been wired for sound and video, with data backing up to servers only he could access. And the offshore accounts? He asked. Traced back to Senator Pearson. His aide was cooperative when presented with certain evidence. Russell nodded. The senator's longtime assistant had a weakness for gambling and young men, information Russell had acquired but never used until now. What about the children? This was his primary concern. Judge Holden has reviewed the evidence of your wife's abandonment and her inappropriate relationship with Walsh. Given the circumstances, he's inclined to grant you temporary full custody pending the final hearing. That evening, as Russell prepared to return to the cabin, Charlotte handed him a sealed envelope. This arrived for you. Courier wouldn't leave it with anyone else. Inside was a single photograph showing Vanessa, Walsh, and Senator Pearson in what appeared to be a hotel conference room, surrounded by documents. A note on the back read, "Some of us remember our loyalties. Not all Pearsons support this vendetta." Friday, 9 p.m. Lakeside Pavilion. Russell recognized the handwriting. Vanessa's younger brother, Thomas Pearson, the family disappointment who had rejected the political path to become an artist. Thomas and Russell had always gotten along well, united in their status as outsiders in the Pearson dynasty. As Russell drove back to the cabin, his phone rang. Vanessa again. "We need to talk," she said, her voice strained. "For the children's sake. We'll talk on Friday, Russell replied. In court. This isn't what you think, Russell. You're making a terrible mistake. No, Vanessa. The mistake was yours. You chose the wrong man to betray. That night, as the children slept, Russell finalized his plans with Miguel and Pike. The information Thomas had promised could be the final piece they needed. What if it's a trap? Miguel asked. Russell checked his gun. Then we'll be ready for that too. Friday arrived with a sense of inevitability. After the court hearing where Judge Holden granted Russell temporary custody and froze several contested assets, much to the visible shock of Walsh, who attended as an observer, Russell prepared for his meeting with Thomas. Stay with the children, he instructed Miguel. If I don't call by midnight, execute the contingency plan. The lakeside pavilion was deserted when Russell arrived, mist rising from the water in the cool evening air. Thomas emerged from the shadows, looking nothing like the carefree artist Russell remembered. His face was drawn, worried. They're planning to have you arrested Monday morning, Thomas said without preamble. Walsh has manufactured evidence of bid rigging and bribery. Dad's calling in every favor he has. Why are you telling me this? Russell asked. They're your family. Thomas met his gaze. Vanessa crossed a line. What they're doing isn't justice, it's persecution. He hesitated. And those kids love you. You're a good father. He handed Russell a USB drive. Everything's here, the real conversations, the actual financial transactions. Walsh has been using Dad's connections to eliminate business rivals for years. You're just the latest target. As they talked, Russell noticed movement at the edge of the pavilion. We're not alone, he whispered. Thomas's eyes widened. I swear I didn't! The crack of a gunshot interrupted him. Thomas clutched his chest, red blossoming on his shirt, as Russell dove for cover. From his position behind a stone column, Russell saw 4 men advancing, weapons drawn. This wasn't law enforcement. No announcements, no badges. This was an execution. Russell drew his gun and returned fire, catching one attacker in the shoulder. He grabbed the wounded Thomas and retreated toward the water, where he had docked a small boat as a secondary escape route. Stay with me, Russell urged as he helped Thomas into the boat. Who sent them? Thomas coughed, blood speckling his lips. Not Vanessa. She doesn't know how far they're willing to go. As Russell started the motor and sped away from the shore, more shots followed them across the water. The pavilion receded into darkness, but Russell knew this was just the beginning. The real war was about to begin. The safe house on the outskirts of town had once been a foreclosure property that Russell's company had renovated and kept off the books. It was modest, nothing like the mansion he shared with Vanessa, but it was secure and untraceable. Thomas Pearson lay on a bed in the spare room, his breathing shallow. The bullet had missed his heart but punctured his lung. Russell's contact, a former combat medic who now worked for cash and discretion, had stabilized him but warned that Thomas needed a hospital. He won't make it another day without proper medical care, the medic said, packing his supplies. Russell pressed a thick envelope of cash into the man's hand. Can you arrange transport somewhere they won't ask questions or report to the authorities? The medic hesitated, then nodded. I know a place. Private clinic runs a cash-only operation for people who need to stay under the radar, but it'll cost you. Money isn't a problem. After the medic left to make arrangements, Russell sat beside Thomas, who drifted in and out of consciousness. Why did you really help me? Russell asked during one of Thomas's lucid moments. Thomas's pale face contorted in pain as he shifted. Lily has my eyes. Pearson eyes. He coughed. Did you ever wonder why? The implication hit Russell like a physical blow. He stared at his brother-in-law, understanding dawning in his expression. Lily is my daughter, Thomas confirmed weakly. One night, years ago, Vanessa was angry at you. Came to my studio. Said she wanted to hurt you where it would matter most. Russell's mind raced back 8 years. The major contract in Dallas, he had been gone for weeks, coming home only on weekends. Vanessa had been distant upon his return, but he attributed it to the stress of his absence. Why tell me now? Because Lily deserves better than Vanessa. Thomas gripped Russell's wrist with surprising strength. And you've been a real father to her. Better than I could be. The revelation should have destroyed Russell. Instead, it crystallized something in him. Lily was his daughter in every way that mattered. Blood was irrelevant. He had raised her, loved her, shaped her life, just as his own stepfather had done for him after his biological father abandoned their family. Does Walsh know? Russell asked. Thomas shook his head. No one knows, except Vanessa and me. And now you. Before Russell could respond, his phone vibrated with a text from Pike. FBI at primary residence, Walsh present with warrant. Simultaneously, a call came in from Miguel. Boss, we've got trouble. Someone tracked your phone. There's movement on the access road to the cabin. Russell's mind shifted into tactical mode. Get the children out. Emergency extraction plan, now. He turned back to Thomas. I'll have someone move you to the clinic within the hour. This location may be compromised. Thomas grabbed his arm again. The USB, it has everything. But Walsh has a contact in the U.S. Attorney's Office, Lawrence Drake. He's the one pushing the federal case. Russell nodded. Rest. I'll handle it. After making arrangements for Thomas, Russell destroyed his phone and switched to one of several burner phones he kept ready. The attack at the pavilion had escalated matters beyond what he'd anticipated. This wasn't just about destroying his reputation or taking his company. They were trying to eliminate him entirely. 2 hours later, Miguel arrived at a second safe house with Noah and Lily, both sleepy and confused. Where are we, Daddy? Lily asked, her eyes, Pearson eyes, Russell now realized, heavy with interrupted sleep. Another part of our adventure, Russell assured her, pushing aside the turmoil Thomas's revelation had created. You're both being very brave. Once the children were settled in a bedroom, Miguel updated Russell. They came in force, 4 SUVs, multiple men, not police, private security professionals. They searched the cabin but cleared out when they found it empty. And the tracker? Left it on a truck heading north. Should buy us some time. Russell nodded, his mind working through contingencies. Did Pike secure the evidence from my home server before they executed the warrant? Everything's safe, but they're freezing your accounts, business and personal. Charlotte's fighting it. It doesn't matter. I prepared for this. Russell had maintained emergency funds in gold, crypto, and cash for years, a habit from his insecure childhood that Vanessa had mocked as paranoid. What about the children's documents? Got them from the secure storage unit. Passports, birth certificates, everything. Russell checked his watch. Nearly midnight. We move at dawn. I need you to deliver something to Agent Delgado at the FBI. You trust her? No, but I trust her ambition. Pike's background check shows she's been passed over for promotion twice in favor of less qualified male agents with better connections. She'll use this case to advance if she sees a clear winner. Russell spent the night preparing 2 packages. The first contained a carefully curated selection of evidence from Thomas's USB drive, enough to raise serious questions about Walsh and Senator Pearson, but not enough to resolve the case without Russell's cooperation. The second package he prepared for Charlotte. Irrefutable evidence of the conspiracy against him, including recordings of Vanessa and Walsh discussing their plans to use the children as leverage. At 5 a.m., as Miguel left to deliver the FBI package, Russell received a call from the private clinic. Thomas had developed complications during the night. He was asking for Russell. By the time Russell arrived, Thomas Pearson was barely conscious, his skin gray beneath the oxygen mask. Did you bring it? Thomas whispered when they were alone. Russell produced the item Thomas had requested during their brief phone conversation, a voice recorder. I need to make a statement. Legal confession. For the next 20 minutes, Thomas detailed everything. The conspiracy between Walsh and Senator Pearson to destroy Russell's reputation and business. The attack at the pavilion, and the truth about Lily's parentage. His voice grew weaker as he continued, but his determination never wavered. I know my father, Thomas rasped. He won't stop until Russell is destroyed or dead. Anthony Walsh is the same. They're cut from the same cloth. Power is all that matters to them. When he finished, Thomas removed the oxygen mask despite Russell's protest. One more thing. My apartment. There's a safe behind the Jackson Pollock knockoff. Combination is Lily's birthday. Everything else you need is there. Thomas's monitor began to alarm as his vitals destabilized. The last words he spoke before medical staff rushed in were, Protect her, Russell. Protect them both. Thomas Pearson died at 6:42 a.m. The doctors cited complications from his gunshot wound, but Russell suspected the truth was more sinister. Someone had gotten to him, perhaps a nurse or orderly paid to ensure Thomas wouldn't testify. As Russell left the clinic, his burner phone rang. It was Charlotte. They've issued a warrant for your arrest, she said without preamble. Charges include fraud, racketeering, and now obstruction of justice. They're claiming you've kidnapped the children. Have they frozen the offshore accounts? Not yet. Your contingency planning is holding for now. What about Judge Holden? They've moved for a different judge, claiming bias. Hearing scheduled for Monday. Russell processed this. And Vanessa? Charlotte's voice hardened. Playing the devastated mother for the press. Walsh at her side as family friend and legal advisor. Senator Pearson is calling for a multi-agency task force to find you and the children. Make sure the custody recordings reach Judge Holden's chambers directly, and file an emergency motion citing threats to the children's safety. Use the pavilion shooting as evidence. After ending the call, Russell drove to Thomas's apartment. The building was quiet in the early morning hours, no sign of surveillance. Using the key Thomas had given him months ago for emergencies, Russell entered and quickly located the safe. Inside was another USB drive, a handwritten journal, and legal documents, including a paternity test confirming Thomas as Lily's biological father, and a will naming Russell as the guardian of Thomas's daughter, Lily Bennett, in the event of his death. Thomas had prepared for this possibility. He had known the risks of standing against his father and Walsh. As Russell gathered the materials, his burner phone rang again. This time it was Pike. "You need to see something," the security specialist said, sending a video link. "Now!" The footage showed a press conference. Vanessa stood at a podium, tear-streaked but composed, with Walsh and Senator Pearson flanking her supportively. "I fear for my children's safety," she was saying, her voice breaking convincingly. "My husband has become increasingly paranoid and volatile in recent months. His business troubles have affected his mental state, and now he's taken my babies. Please, Russell, if you're watching this, bring Noah and Lily home. They need their mother." Russell watched, cold fury building as Walsh stepped forward. "We have reason to believe Mr. Bennett may be attempting to flee the country with the children," the DA announced gravely. "All airports and border crossings have been alerted. We implore anyone with information to come forward." Senator Pearson spoke next, his patrician features arranged in an expression of concern. "As a father and grandfather, I am devastated by this situation. I am offering a $100,000 reward for information leading to the safe return of my grandchildren." The performance was masterful. Concerned mother, supportive authorities, generous grandfather. They had effectively painted Russell as a dangerous, unstable kidnapper. But they had made one critical mistake. "They don't know Thomas is dead," Russell realized, speaking to Pike. "And they don't know what he told me." It was time to change the game. Chapter 5. Pawns and Kings Russell's next move required precision timing. After arranging secure accommodations for the children with Miguel's sister, a retired teacher who lived off-grid in a small mountain community, he prepared to leverage the evidence Thomas had provided. "They're expecting me to run," Russell told Miguel during their encrypted video call. "So instead, I'm going to walk right through the front door." "You realize that's self-life ending?" Miguel responded, concern evident in his voice. "Not if we control the narrative." Russell's plan involved a dangerous gambit. While Charlotte prepared motions and legal countermeasures, he arranged a meeting that would change everything. Teresa Delgado, the FBI agent who had first contacted him, agreed to meet at a public location of Russell's choosing, a crowded farmer's market in a neighboring county. Russell arrived early, positioned lookouts, former military personnel who had worked security for his construction sites, and waited. Delgado came alone, dressed casually in jeans and a light jacket, but Russell's people identified her sidearm and the two plainclothes agents maintaining distance at opposite ends of the market. "Bold move, Mr. Bennett," she said, examining a display of organic tomatoes while speaking quietly. "Half the law enforcement in the state is looking for you. Yet here you are without backup from the local PD or U.S. Marshals," Russell noted, standing beside her. "Interesting choice." Delgado's expression remained neutral. "Let's just say I have questions about how this case landed on my desk." The chain of command was unusual. "Walsh bypassed protocols to involve federal authorities," Russell said, using his connection to Lawrence Drake in the U.S. Attorney's Office. Delgado's slight widening of the eyes confirmed Russell's information. "You seem well informed for someone on the run." "I'm not on the run, Agent Delgado. I'm protecting my children from the people who tried to eliminate Thomas Pearson." He handed her a sealed envelope. "Digital forensics on the evidence used against me. Note the creation and modification timestamps, all after I filed for divorce. And this," he passed her a thumb drive, "is security footage from the Lakeside Pavilion shooting. You'll see 4 professional hitmen targeting both me and Thomas Pearson." Delgado pocketed both items carefully. "Why come to me?" "Because your review of the Westlake development corruption case last year shows you follow evidence, not politics. And because you've been passed over for advancement twice, despite your superior case closure rate." Now her expression showed genuine surprise. you've done your homework. I've built a successful business in a competitive industry. Research is essential. Russell checked his watch. You have 48 hours to verify what I've given you. After that, alternative arrangements will proceed. Alternative arrangements? Let's just say certain media outlets and congressional oversight committees will receive comprehensive packages, but that would be messier for everyone involved. As Russell turned to leave, Delgado asked, "Where are the children, Mr. Bennett?" "Safe," he replied without turning back, which is more than I could say if they were with their mother. The next phase required Russell to leverage more of the connections he built over 15 years in business. By evening, he had arranged a meeting with Lawrence Drake's former law partner, a man with his own reasons to distrust the ambitious federal prosecutor. Martin Graves welcomed Russell into his home office with a grim expression. "You're taking an enormous risk coming here." "No greater than the one you took when you called me," Russell replied. The attorney's unexpected contact had come earlier that day, a message relayed through Charlotte, indicating that Graves had information about the case against Russell. "Drake is compromised," Graves stated bluntly, pouring 2 fingers of scotch for each of them. "He's been washing money through real estate investments for Walsh and Senator Pearson for years. That's why he jumped to push this case through. He needs to protect himself as much as them." "You can prove this?" Graves slid a file across his desk. "Banking records, property transactions through shell companies, communications. Drake was careless when we were partners. I've kept copies of everything as insurance. Why help me now?" The older man swirled his scotch, staring into the amber liquid. "Drake forced me out of the firm I built by threatening to expose my daughter's addiction issues to the ethics committee. She was struggling, stealing prescription pads from her physician husband. Drake used that to take everything I'd worked for. Personal vendettas made for motivated allies. Russell had learned this lesson early in his career. By midnight, Russell had what he needed: documented evidence of the prosecutor's corruption that would strengthen Agent Delgado's investigation and potentially turn Drake into a cooperating witness against Walsh and Senator Pearson. The following morning brought news that shifted the dynamics further. Thomas Pearson's death had been reported, attributed to a hunting accident, with no mention of gunshot wounds or the clinic where he had actually died. Senator Pearson announced the tragic news himself, praising his beloved son and using the press conference to renew calls for finding his missing grandchildren. The fabricated story confirmed Russell's suspicions. They were actively covering up the attempted elimination at the pavilion, which meant they would go to any length to prevent the truth from emerging. It was time to accelerate his plan. Charlotte arranged an emergency hearing with Judge Holden, closed to the public due to sensitive matters involving minors. When Russell appeared in the judge's chambers with his attorney, the court security officers were prepared, having been briefed personally by the judge. "Mr. Bennett," Judge Holden began gravely, "you understand that there are warrants for your arrest." "Yes, Your Honor, and I'm prepared to address them after ensuring my children's safety." For the next hour, Russell and Charlotte presented evidence of the conspiracy against him, including Thomas Pearson's recorded deathbed testimony, the financial connections between Walsh, Senator Pearson, and Prosecutor Drake, and the custody documents naming Russell as Lily's legal guardian following Thomas's death. Judge Holden, a man known for his careful deliberation, made an uncharacteristically swift decision. "I am extending the emergency custody order and sealing all records in this case pending investigation of these serious allegations." He fixed Russell with a stern look. "However, Mr. Bennett, you will need to surrender to authorities to address the criminal charges." "I understand, Your Honor. I'm prepared to surrender to the FBI, specifically to Agent Teresa Delgado, once my children are placed in protective custody beyond the reach of those who would harm them." The judge considered this request. "I will arrange for court-appointed guardians with no connection to any party in this case. The children's location will remain confidential, known only to this court and the appointed guardians." It wasn't ideal, but it was better than the alternative. Russell agreed to the terms. As Russell left the courthouse through a service entrance arranged by the judge, Charlotte's phone rang. Her expression darkened as she listened. "They've moved against your company," she reported after ending the call. "State regulators have suspended all Bennett construction projects pending investigation. They're executing search warrants at your offices right now." Russell had anticipated this. Miguel will handle it. The contingency plans are in place. What he hadn't anticipated was the news report that greeted them when they reached Charlotte's car. On her dashboard screen, breaking news showed Vanessa being escorted from her home on a stretcher, apparently sedated, with Walsh grimly informing reporters that the stress of her children's abduction had caused a breakdown requiring hospitalization. They're setting up an insanity defense for her, Charlotte realized. If evidence starts pointing to her involvement, they'll claim she was manipulated while mentally vulnerable. Russell watched the performance with cold detachment. They're adapting. So will we. That evening, after arranging for the children to be transferred to the court-appointed guardians, Russell prepared for the most dangerous part of his plan. He would surrender to Agent Delgado, placing his faith in the evidence he had provided and the additional leverage he had arranged. But first, he had one more card to play. Using a secure line established by Pike, Russell connected with Maria Pearson, the senator's wife of 40 years and Vanessa's mother. The call was brief, but effective. By the following morning, Mrs. Pearson had withdrawn $50 million from family accounts and publicly announced her separation from the senator, citing irreconcilable moral differences. The timing couldn't have been coincidental, nor could the specific amount exactly matching. Recent transfers to offshore accounts linked to Walsh and Drake. As Russell prepared to surrender, Miguel called with news from the business front. They found nothing in the office raids, he reported. All the documentation was clean, just as you ensured it would be. But they're freezing the company assets anyway. What about Project Lazarus? Russell asked, referring to their contingency company. Fully operational. The key clients have already signed with the new entity. Bennett Construction may be on ice, but Phoenix Development is taking over all essential operations with the same teams, just as you planned. Russell allowed himself a small smile. Years of preparing for worst-case scenarios were finally paying off. What about our friend in Washington? He asked. Congressman Turner received the package. His office confirmed he'll be calling for a special investigation into Walsh and Senator Pearson's activities related to the state contracting process. It was all coming together. But Russell knew the most dangerous moments in any operation were when victory seemed within reach. That was when people grew careless, and Russell Bennett never grew careless. The morning of Russell's planned surrender dawned with unexpected complications. Pike's monitoring of police channels detected unusual activity. Multiple tactical teams mobilizing for a high-risk operation. They're not waiting for your surrender, Pike warned during their encrypted call. DEA, local SWAT, even some private contractors. They're setting up for a raid at multiple locations. Russell processed this information quickly. They found one of the safe houses. The timing suggests they have new intelligence. Someone talked. There were few people who knew Russell's contingency locations. Miguel was loyal beyond question. Charlotte was legally bound to confidentiality. The court-appointed guardians only knew the location where they had collected the children. Check on the children, Russell instructed, already moving to evacuate his current position. Make sure the judicial protective order is being enforced. Within minutes, Pike confirmed the children were secure in their court-mandated placement. But the news wasn't entirely positive. Judge Holden has been temporarily removed from the case, Pike reported. Administrative reassignment due to case overload. New judge is Franklin Morris. The name triggered immediate alarm. Morris was known to be close to Senator Pearson. They had attended the same law school and belonged to the same exclusive clubs. They're making their move, Russell realized. Delgado must have been overruled or sidelined. A call to Charlotte confirmed his suspicions. DEA claims they received an anonymous tip linking you to money laundering through your construction projects, she reported. They've convinced a federal judge to issue new search warrants for all known associates and properties. Anonymous tip, Russell repeated sarcastically. Walsh is getting desperate. Russell, Charlotte's voice took on a rare note of personal concern. They're throwing everything at this. Using multiple agencies means they can claim jurisdictional confusion if anything goes wrong during your apprehension. The implication was clear. This wasn't an arrest operation. It was potentially an elimination. Russell made his decision. Tell Delgado I'm moving up our meeting. Send her the coordinates for location 3. And Charlotte, activate the nuclear option. The nuclear option was Russell's final contingency, a comprehensive data package containing all evidence of corruption, attempted elimination, and conspiracy set to automatically release to major media, outlets, oversight committees, and rival political figures if Russell didn't enter a specific code every 24 hours. As Russell navigated to the new meeting location, an abandoned warehouse his company had purchased for redevelopment, Pike provided updates on the tactical team's movements. They were converging on his previous locations, still unaware of his current position. Agent Delgado arrived alone, as requested, her government-issue sedan parking discreetly at the service entrance. Russell watched from a security feed as she exited her vehicle, hand near but not on her holstered weapon. "Clear," Pike confirmed after scanning for electronic surveillance. "But she's wearing a wire." "Expected," Russell replied. "Let her in." Delgado's expression registered surprise when she found Russell waiting calmly at a table with documents spread before him. "You're earlier than planned," she noted, remaining standing. "Circumstances changed. Multiple tactical teams are currently raiding locations associated with me. DEA involvement suggests someone's manufacturing drug connections to justify a more aggressive approach." Delgado's face revealed nothing, but she didn't deny his assessment. "I was informed of the operation an hour ago. Different task force, separate chain of command." "Convenient," Russell observed. "Judge Holden's removal and the new raids happening simultaneously suggest coordination at a high level. Why call me here, Bennett, if you know about the operations? You know I can't stop them." Russell pushed a file toward her. "Thomas Pearson's paternity test confirming he's Lily's biological father. His legal will naming me as her guardian. And most importantly, his detailed testimony about the conspiracy between Walsh, Senator Pearson, and Lawrence Drake." Delgado scanned the documents, her professional composure slipping momentarily. "This changes the custody angle, but not the financial crimes you're charged with." "Check the last file," Russell directed. "Complete banking records showing how Drake laundered money through real estate transactions for Walsh and Pearson. The same pattern they tried to fabricate against me." As Delgado reviewed the evidence, her phone buzzed repeatedly. She checked it with growing concern. "Your tactical teams hit empty locations," Russell surmised. "Now they're wondering where their prey disappeared to." "This isn't a game, Bennett. People could get hurt if this escalates." "It stopped being a game when they tried to eliminate Thomas Pearson and me at the pavilion." Russell leaned forward. "You have a choice, Agent Delgado. Follow the actual evidence where it leads, or become part of a corrupt prosecution that's rapidly falling apart." Delgado studied him for a long moment. "If I take you in now, I can guarantee your safety during processing. Not good enough. I need written assurance of protective custody separate from local facilities where Walsh has influence. And I need confirmation that the children remain under judicial protection with their location undisclosed." Before Delgado could respond, her phone rang again. This time she answered on speaker. "Delgado, Agent, this is Director Kaplan. Your location has been identified. Stand down and withdraw. Tactical teams are en route to your position." Russell and Delgado locked eyes across the table. The director's order confirmed everything. The operation wasn't about lawful arrest, but ensuring Russell couldn't present his evidence. Delgado made her decision. "Sir, I'm with the subject now. He's surrendering peacefully with significant counter-evidence. Request permission to—" "That was not your assignment, Agent." The director cut her off sharply. "Withdraw immediately." "That's an order." After ending the call, Delgado holstered her weapon and unpinned her badge. "You have about 10 minutes before they arrive. There's a maintenance tunnel that leads to the river access road. I can't help you beyond that." Russell gathered the evidence quickly. "Why risk your career?" "Because I became an agent to uphold the law, not help corrupt officials destroy innocent people." She handed him a business card with a handwritten number on the back. "My personal line. When you're ready to come in on legitimate terms, call me directly." As Delgado left through the front entrance, creating a visible distraction, Russell exited through the maintenance tunnel with Pike. They reached the backup vehicle just as the first tactical units surrounded the warehouse. "Nuclear options still active?" Russell confirmed as Pike drove them away from the scene. "Armed and ready. If you don't enter the code within 24 hours, everything drops." Russell checked his secure phone, finding a message from Charlotte. "Judge Morris denied motion to maintain protective custody. New hearing scheduled for tomorrow at 9 a.m. to determine children's placement." They were moving faster than anticipated, using the judicial system to regain control of the children before Russell could fully deploy his evidence. "We need to accelerate," Russell decided. "Contact Miguel. It's time for Phase 3. Phase 3 was the most aggressive countermove in Russell's strategy, direct confrontation with the conspirators themselves. While legal maneuvers continued through Charlotte, Russell prepared to leverage the one thing his opponents valued above all else: their public reputations. That evening, as Senator Pearson hosted a fundraising event for Walsh's Gubernatorial Exploratory Committee, Pike hacked into the venue's digital systems. When the senator introduced Walsh to the gathering of wealthy donors and political supporters, the presentation screens around the ballroom suddenly changed. Instead of the campaign highlights video, the screens displayed security footage from the Lakeside Pavilion, showing the attempted elimination of Thomas Pearson, followed by Vanessa's recorded conversations with Walsh about using her marriage to gain access to Russell's business records. The footage concluded with Thomas Pearson's deathbed testimony naming his father and Walsh as the architects of the conspiracy against Russell. Pandemonium erupted in the ballroom. News cameras that had been invited to cover the political event captured the chaos as Senator Pearson and Walsh were hurried from the stage by security personnel. Within hours, the footage was trending across social media and news networks, with commentators questioning the shifting narrative of Thomas Pearson's death and the legitimacy of the charges against Russell Bennett. By midnight, Charlotte reported that Judge Morris had recused himself from the custody case, citing public perception concerns. The case reverted to Judge Holden's docket, and the protective custody order for the children was reinstated. The tide was turning, but Russell knew his opponents were cornered rather than defeated, and that made them more dangerous than ever. The final confrontation was approaching, and Russell Bennett was ready to end this war on his terms. Dawn broke with news that shocked even Russell. Overnight, Lawrence Drake had been found dead in his home, an apparent self-life ending with a typed note confessing to evidence tampering and corruption. The timing was too convenient. The circumstances too neat. They were eliminating loose ends, Russell told Miguel during their secure call. Drake knew too much and was a potential weak link. Boss, this is getting serious. If they're willing to eliminate a federal prosecutor... They've been serious from the beginning, Russell interrupted. This just confirms what we're dealing with. The alleged self-life ending created a new complication. Drake's confession included claims that he had been manipulated by Russell, who supposedly threatened his family to coerce him into providing false evidence against Walsh and Senator Pearson. It was a clumsy attempt to discredit the evidence Russell had gathered, but it was enough to create confusion in the media narrative. Some outlets were already questioning whether the footage displayed at the fundraiser had been doctored. Russell needed to move quickly before the momentum shifted again. The nuclear option, releasing all evidence publicly, would ensure the truth emerged, but it might not be enough to protect him and the children from immediate retaliation. He needed leverage that would make direct action against him too costly for his enemies. The answer came from an unexpected source. Maria Pearson, the senator's estranged wife, requested a meeting through Thomas's art dealer, a neutral third party whom Russell had met several times at gallery openings. They met at the dealer's private studio, with Pike providing security and surveillance from a distance. Maria Pearson had aged gracefully into her 60s, her silver hair and tailored suit projecting the dignified image expected of a political spouse. But her eyes held a hardness Russell had never noticed before. "Thomas contacted me before he died," she said without preamble. "He told me everything, about Lily, about the conspiracy against you, about what Dale and Walsh were planning." "Yet you said nothing," Russell observed, keeping his tone neutral. Maria's composed expression didn't waver. "I've been married to Dale Pearson for 40 years, Mr. Bennett. I learned long ago when to speak and when to prepare silently." She opened her handbag and removed a small device that looked like a compact external hard drive. "This contains 40 years of insurance, recordings, financial records, correspondence. Dale never believed a woman my age would understand technology well enough to document his activities." Russell accepted the device cautiously. "Why give this to me?" "Because Thomas trusted you with his daughter." Her voice caught slightly before she regained control. "And because Dale has forgotten the most important rule in politics, you never leave witnesses, especially not the ones who share your bed." The device contained exactly what Maria had promised: decades of damning evidence about Senator Pearson's corrupt dealings, including several that implicated Walsh and other powerful figures. More importantly, it contained recent communications discussing the Bennett problem and the need for permanent solutions. With this final piece, Russell had everything he needed, but delivering it required perfect execution. Agent Delgado agreed to meet again, this time at the FBI field office, with her direct supervisor present. The supervisor, Assistant Director Kemp, was initially skeptical but became increasingly disturbed as Russell and Charlotte presented the comprehensive evidence, including Maria Pearson's recordings and documentation of Lawrence Drake's suspicious death. "This goes beyond local corruption," A.D. Kemp concluded after reviewing the materials. "We're looking at conspiracy, attempted elimination, obstruction of justice, and potentially the elimination of a federal prosecutor disguised as self-life ending. Which is why we need formal witness protection for Mr. Bennett and his children." Charlotte pressed. The local charges are clearly retaliatory and based on fabricated evidence. Kemp made several calls, speaking in careful, measured language that revealed little. After the third call, he turned to Russell. Washington has authorized me to offer you a cooperation agreement. In exchange for your testimony, all local charges will be suspended pending federal investigation, and you and your children will receive witness protection during the process. It was what Russell had been working toward, but he needed one more. Guarantee. I want it in writing that my custody of both children is recognized and protected regardless of biological paternity concerns. That's not typically within our— Those are my terms, Russell stated firmly. I have evidence that could bring down half the political establishment in this state. I think that warrants some accommodation. By evening, the agreement was finalized. Russell would testify before a federal grand jury. All local charges would be suspended, and most critically, Noah and Lily would remain in his custody with federal protection. As Russell prepared to reunite with his children, news broke that District Attorney Anthony Walsh had been taken into federal custody for questioning related to Lawrence Drake's death. Hours later, Senator Pearson announced he was temporarily stepping back from public duties to address family matters. The carefully constructed conspiracy was crumbling, but Russell knew it wasn't over. Vanessa remained free, still playing the role of distraught mother, recovering in a private clinic that happened to be owned by one of her father's associates. And powerful people like the senator and Walsh had resources and connections that extended beyond normal legal constraints. The final phase of Russell's plan addressed these loose ends. Using Maria Pearson's evidence and Thomas's testimony, Charlotte filed motions to completely terminate Vanessa's parental rights, based on evidence of conspiracy against Russell and endangerment of the children. Simultaneously, Russell's media contacts received anonymous packages containing evidence of Vanessa's active role in the conspiracy, including text messages orchestrating the timeline of false allegations and discussing how to leverage the children against Russell. The public narrative shifted dramatically. Vanessa was no longer portrayed as the victim, but as an active participant in a corrupt scheme. Her tearful press conferences were contrasted with her own damning words in text messages and recorded conversations. 3 days after entering federal protection, Russell received word that Vanessa had fled the private clinic. Her whereabouts were unknown, but international flight alerts had been triggered for all airports and border crossings. She won't get far, Agent Delgado assured him during their daily briefing. Her accounts are monitored, her passport is flagged. Russell wasn't so certain. She has her father's resources, and she's proven more calculating than anyone realized. His instincts proved correct. That night, as Russell and the children settled into their temporary protected residence, a comfortable house on a military base, security alarms triggered throughout the facility. Stay with the children. Russell instructed the assigned FBI protective detail as he moved to the secure room designated for emergencies. Through the security feeds, Russell watched as base security intercepted an unauthorized vehicle at the main gate. When they approached, the driver sped off, crashing through the barrier and leading military police on a brief chase that ended with the vehicle disabled by a security measure. The driver was Vanessa. How did she find this location? Agent Delgado demanded when she arrived 30 minutes later. The answer emerged during Vanessa's interrogation. She had placed a tracking device in Noah's favorite stuffed dinosaur, something so personal Russell would never leave it behind during their moves. She was always smart, Russell acknowledged when informed of this detail. Just not as smart as she thought. Vanessa's desperate attempt to reach the children provided the final evidence needed to terminate her parental rights. Judge Holden, reviewing the comprehensive case file, including the tracking device and base security breach, issued a permanent order granting Russell sole legal and physical custody of both children. When confronted with the federal case building against her, Vanessa made one last attempt to salvage her situation, offering to testify against her father and Walsh in exchange for leniency. Let her, Russell told the federal prosecutors. She deserves whatever life she creates for herself after this. With Vanessa's cooperation, the federal case expanded rapidly. Within weeks, Senator Pearson, Anthony Walsh, and several associates were indicted on multiple charges ranging from corruption and evidence tampering to conspiracy to commit elimination. The man who had once looked down on Russell as not good enough for his daughter now faced the prospect of spending his remaining years in federal prison. 6 months later, the federal case against Senator Pearson, Walsh, and their associates proceeded methodically. Several officials accepted plea deals, strengthening the prosecution. Russell and the children remained in protective custody, with increasing freedoms as threats diminished. Noah adapted well, treating their situation as an adventure. Lily, more perceptive, asked difficult questions about her mother. "You have always been my daughter, in every way that matters," Russell assured her when she worried about still being his real daughter. Russell rebuilt Phoenix Development under Miguel's management. Many of Bennett Construction's clients and employees transferred over, loyal to Russell rather than the company name. Charlotte worked to unfreeze Bennett Construction's assets, arguing they were improperly seized on fabricated evidence. When deemed safe, Russell and the children relocated to a new home, a secure property purchased through Phoenix Development. The house, set on wooded grounds with disguised security features, became their sanctuary under Miguel's careful construction oversight. Agent Delgado brought unexpected news. Vanessa's cooperation agreement was revoked after she was caught warning targets about federal investigations, specifically communicating with Anthony Walsh through romantic messages and sharing federal strategy. Details. "She's being charged as a co-conspirator without cooperation benefits," Delgado explained. "The evidence from Maria Pearson's records alone ensures a substantial sentence." Maria Pearson emerged as a compelling witness, describing decades of observing and documenting her husband's corruption. Her dignified testimony contrasted sharply with the senator's desperate denials. Russell focused on healing, arranging family therapy, creating new routines, and helping his children recover. Noah thrived in his new school, while Lily struggled more but gradually responded to Russell's consistent love and stability. On Lily's 9th birthday, Russell gave her a special gift, a painting Thomas had created specifically for her, recovered from his studio. "Your Uncle Thomas made this for you," he explained, using their agreed-upon relationship term. "It feels like looking at the world after rain stops," Lily observed, perfectly capturing Thomas's artistic intention. Legal resolution came swiftly. Senator Pearson accepted 25 years with no parole in exchange for testimony against remaining conspirators. Walsh followed with 18 years, attempting to shift blame. Vanessa, without cooperation benefits, received 12 years for conspiracy, evidence tampering, and security breaches. Before Vanessa began her sentence, Russell visited her at the Federal Detention Center, not for gain, but for closure. "I never meant for it to go so far," Vanessa explained through the glass partition. "My father never accepted you. Walsh represented everything he wanted for me: pedigree, political connections. It started as leverage for divorce, then escalated beyond my control." When Russell asked about Thomas's death, pain flickered across her features. "I never wanted Thomas hurt. When I heard what happened, I tried to back out, but it was too late." "The children will be okay," Russell told her. "When they're old enough, I won't poison them against you. The truth will be enough." Vanessa's composure cracked. "Will you bring them to visit eventually?" "That will be their choice when they're older. I won't keep them from you, but I won't force them either." As Russell left the detention center, he felt a weight lift. The conversation wasn't about forgiveness, some betrayals went too deep, but about recognizing one chapter's end and another's beginning. Russell Bennett had survived the conspiracy to destroy him. More than survived, he had emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined to protect what truly mattered. The war was over. Now came the peace, hard-won, imperfect, but real. 5 years on, Russell's Phoenix Development thrives, having absorbed Bennett Construction's rehabilitated assets. Noah, 11, is confident and athletic. Lily, 14, is a gifted artist, channeling her late Uncle Thomas Pearson's talent. The family has found stability. Senator Pearson died in prison. DA Anthony Walsh, still serving his sentence, is later found dead, apparent self-life ending. Russell is informed by Agent Delgado but feels justice was already served. Vanessa remains incarcerated, her sentence slightly reduced. Russell honors his promise, facilitating Noah's visits to her. Lily declines, a choice Russell respects. Russell's current major project is an urban renewal development featuring the Thomas Pearson Center for the Arts, a tribute to the man whose sacrifice was pivotal. Vanessa writes Russell a reflective, remorseful letter after Walsh's death. She expresses gratitude for Noah's visits, understands Lily's distance, acknowledges Russell's strength and her own past blindness, and hopes for a future, different relationship with their children, asking nothing. Russell files it. Russell finds true success not in revenge or wealth, but in building a legacy of integrity and resilience that survives betrayal, embodied by his children's well-being and his constructive work. Lily feels a connection to Thomas through the Art Center. Vanessa's final appeal is denied. She faces roughly 4 more years. Ultimately, Russell's enemies lost everything. He protected what was irreplaceable, his children and his ability to build a positive future. This, not vengeance, is his true victory. His focus remains on family and creation, a testament to his enduring strength.